everyone, welcome to Backstory Sessions. I'm your host Matt. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Hey everybody, it's Kat, and I want to welcome you to this episode of Backstory Sessions. I'm joined today by my co-host, Matt. Hey, Matt.
Hey, Kat. Hey, everyone. How are you?
Today, Matt, we are going to be wiser.
Well, we can only hope. That's a daily goal.
It doesn't seem possible, really, that we could be any wiser, but, I'm going to keep an open mind.
That's true. I mean, we are pretty smart, so...
Yeah. Well, we have the author of 72 Wisdoms with us today, and this book is filled with, quotes from the wisest of the wise, except for somehow I did not get included. But you did.
That's true. I did, yeah.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Jeff Rasley, our guest and the author, was on our podcast a while back. I think we were talking about pickleball, maybe, on that episode.
Yeah, it's a book that he had written about pickleball, the death, murder mystery kind of.
Right, yeah. So we talked to him on one episode, and after the episode recording was done, he was saying he was working on another book, and if we had any, quotes that we really liked to send them along. So I actually sent him two, and one of them he liked more than the other, and picked it for the book.
And I was, pleasantly surprised and happy for you.
I was too. He sent me an email and he said, the book is out and one of your quotes was chosen. So I was like, oh, wow, that's cool.
I know. And then the funny part is, you couldn't remember the
right.
quote.
Yeah.
I couldn't either.
Yeah, I had to actually go back and look at the email that I sent to see which one it was, or which ones they were that I sent.
Yeah. Well, I think that people could hear that and think oh, well, they can't remember anything. But honestly, it's really more to the fact that you have so many wisdoms that, narrowing it down to which one or two is a hard task.
Well, I mean, that and, podcasting is hard work. So,
yeah,
I can't remember everything.
Past, I mean,
yeah.
Since he was our guest, and
it was a while ago, wasn't it?
It was. So
yeah, over a year, I think.
Well, it's just really, it's great that you are in the book, and 72 wisdoms. So, each day, he would take, a wisdom quote and reflect on it. So do you find yourself daily, do you set aside any amount of time that you focus on something like that, a wisdom?
I'm lucky if I can remember to wear pants. So no.
Yeah. Well, if you ever forget to, make sure that you film that so I can have it.
Yeah.
Remember that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I can see the benefit of staying focused, throughout the day on something thought provoking. It keeps your mind, working and connecting and pondering, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if I think are you talking about meditation, that kind of thing?
No, probably not, because I feel like we would fall asleep.
Yes, I know I would.
But I would say, like, in our conversations, we do a lot of wisdom back and forth things. Um, so in that way, I feel like that we get a pretty good amount of it, from time to time when we're talking. Whether it's a news story or something we've read about, or watched on TV even.
Yeah,
You know,
I guess. I mean, I don't sit there and think to myself like, oh, this, I don't think about a quote every day or whatever. I mean, I hear things every now and then that remind me of something or whatever. But no, I mean, I don't think I spend every day, any amount of time reflecting on anything really other than, what I'm doing at work or what I need to, basically it's just things I need to do.
well, we often talk about our podcast, the guests afterwards, and
Right.
reflect a lot on what, because I think we learn something from each guest that we have, even if many of them are actors or singers, they still have a different path that got them there. And so I think we pick up quite a bit of wisdom from each person that we,
Yes, and even from our
interview.
listeners every now and then.
Yes, and the group especially is like so, so active, and they have some really interesting things that they post. And
Yeah. Some of it's all, most of it's great. Some of it isn't, but, that's just the way it is.
well, we I feel like you can learn something from most. Well, really, you could learn something from everyone, because
Sure.
it may not be exactly wise, or wise in a good way, but
Or it may not be what you want to hear or whatever, but, we've gotten some feedback that has been helpful, and others, other feedback that is not. But, we try and take something from all of it. So,
yeah, and definitely appreciate when people take the time to, write a critique of
yeah.
how many times we might say so, or
Right, yes, yeah.
yeah.
Well, we try and learn from that sort of thing and make things better, but we still do it.
Well, I feel like if I take out so, I'm going to replace it with another word. I mean,
Right.
really, I just feel like, we're communicating, and it's conversational. I've listened to our guests from time to time, and they say so as much as we do, or,
Right.
or whatever. So we're not, I feel like on here that we're not making a speech or something
Exactly.
formal.
Yeah.
So in conversation, I think it's perfectly, I think it makes the guests feel at ease, and I think it just makes the flow of things better if we just be our authentic selves. How's
Right.
that for wisdom?
There you go. Yeah, so, we'll have to get Jeff's take on some of this and see what he's got to say.
Yeah, well, I want to know, like, how can I get in the next book, like,
Come
well,
up
I
with a
have
good
to
quote.
you and all that, it just kind of makes me look like I'm upstaged again by Matt.
Well, I mean, I wasn't trying to. It's just, I guess I sent him an email and you didn't.
Well, you have the voice, the radio voice, like from the beginning, like you get all the accolades. And I'm like, looking for my tiny little something.
Right.
So,
Well, your day's coming. So.
Yeah, I hope that's in a good way.
I'm sure it
I'm
will
going
be.
to learn from these 72 wisdoms that we are going to hear about right now. So,
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of good ones in there. I've seen the book and read, some of the quotes and the background behind them, and it's pretty interesting stuff for sure.
and we're going to be sharing with the listeners each day, a little wisdom for them to reflect on. So, really looking forward to that.
All right, well, let's talk to Jeff and see how he came up with the idea and what that process was like.
All right. Well, Jeff, we are so happy to have you back as a guest again. Is this what, the third time we've had you, I think?
Yes, well, and it's good to be back with you two, Kat and Matt.
Yeah. If it is the third time, Matt, I believe he would be the first guest that we've had three times. Is that right?
I think that is true, yeah. And I believe it is the third time.
And so three's a charm, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think
I don't know, Matt. You're supposed to have like some kind of music queued up, a drum roll or something.
Well, I was just working my way around to say that at least one of us, Kat, is charming. Yeah. So now the bump.
Well, they do say cats are like that, charming, and put spells on people and such. No.
we'll see,
Well, nice.
we'll see what we can do in editing.
Don't you edit out my charming part. That's all I got.
Of course.
But Jeff, we did want to talk to you about 72 Wisdoms, a practical guide to make life more meaningful. And I know I certainly could use more meaningful in my life. So, what inspired this idea?
Well, it started by I just noticed, and this is about a year ago. I was coming across very interesting sayings that I was personally finding inspiring or wise, interesting, and so I started a little habit of writing down one that I would encounter almost every day, and then just kind of thinking about it. And then after I'd done that for I don't know, maybe a week, 10 days or so, I thought, what I'd really like to do is really dig into these quotes, and not just find out who said it or wrote it, start with that, but look into the context, the history behind it, and then think more deeply about what it really means. Just kind of peel some layers of meaning back. And then after I started doing that, I thought, oh, this could be a book. So I just started writing, and I would come across what I thought was a meaningful quote from all sorts of different sources. Every few days, and when I thought it was worth it, I would take it down and then research it. Who said it or wrote it, what was the historical or cultural context, and then try to think deeply about what meaning it could have beyond just this sort of obvious, superficial meaning, and then wrote an essay about that, which would often lead to other interesting, meaningful quotes, so that although there are 72 chapters with a lead-in of 72 different quotes from 72 different sources, within each chapter there are usually several others, because one sort of spawns another, and so the whole process of doing this, I think, leads the reader through 72 different topics of what I consider very important issues that everybody ought to deal with. And so that's it.
And so then number 72, does that have a significance, or is that just like, why'd you stop there?
Yeah, well, the title of the chapter is "Time's Up" because I had to cut it off at some point, and when I got to about 50, my wife, who is my first editor, said, how many of these are you going to do, and how long are you going to keep doing this? And I said, well, I think I could do 100. And she, no, too many. You need to cut it off before 100, so pick a number. So I checked a few numbers that I thought would have some kind of, sort of mystical or mythological, interesting meaning, and didn't really come up with a lot, but I did settle on 72 because I'm 72 inches tall, and 7 plus 2 is 9. And 9 has sort of a numerology significance because it's 3 times the Trinity, and there's some other stuff that doesn't really turn me on. But anyway, it was a good place to stop.
Wow. So even the title has a lot of thought into it. So, all right. I know Matt had sent in a quote, and so I like to talk a little bit about that one because I actually I wasn't sure which one he had sent to you, but I have liked the one that he sent. So I'll just paraphrase it, and then I don't know. You can tell me like the historical or any of that you want to, but. So everybody wants to be a lion until it's time to hunt. What is that?
Mm-hmm.
What is?
Well, first of all, I want to point out something that was very strange about this. So this particular quote that Matt sent me, which I thought was definitely worthy of looking into, and especially when he explained why it was meaningful to him. So, I get my author's copy of the book, and of course it's been gone through 3 levels of editing, and everything looks fine. And then the audio book, which has not been published yet, but it's in production, and I have a professional narrator who's narrating it. He emails me and he says, did you know that chapter 22 is missing from the table of contents?
Oh, wow.
I said, what? And so I pull my author's copy out and I look at, holy crap, Matt's chapter. It's not in the table of contents. And the narrator says, well, it's in the text, it's in the manuscript. And so I quickly page to that page, and yeah, it's there. But so I don't know how many copies were sold before, but so this was probably maybe 3 weeks after it was published that this was discovered. And one of the wonderful things, and there's definitely some downsides, but one of the wonderful things about having a publishing deal with Amazon is you can actually change a manuscript, both the ebook, the paperback. The audiobook would be more difficult, but actually change the text, and from the moment that change is input, the next book sold will have that change. But so there's some books out there, and thankfully I haven't heard a complaint from anybody.
Wow.
That Matt, your chapter 22 is not in the table of contents.
I actually have one of those copies that does not have it in there.
Okay, so
Yeah.
there you go.
It's-
Don't complain about it. Don't be the first to complain.
That's awesome.
See what happens, Matt, when you take my charming part out.
Yeah.
Delete it from the table of contents.
That's funny.
That is funny. I did not know that, but so
Yeah, so that was a way to avoid answering your question. But okay, so I'll try to answer the actual question. I thought this was an interesting statement, which you read, and I especially thought that Matt's explanation of why it was meaningful to him, which basically is he found it inspiring because in his own life experience, and particularly work he did with the particle accelerator, was very difficult, and it required real effort at mastery. And other people would hear about it and say, "Oh, well, that's pretty cool," and we would get the impression that, no big deal, anybody could do that. And what Eric is saying is it takes a lot of work. It takes commitment. It takes dedication to master something and to have success in life at, whatever your chosen field might be.
Mm-hmm.
And I completely agree with that, and I think that's sort of a well-known wisdom. But what was interesting to me as I researched Eric and read a number of articles about him in which he was quoted and watched a couple of his YouTubes, is there's a really mean side to him. And so I quote from two articles in which quote him, where he really rants in a very angry tone of voice about how mediocre people are worthless, and the only people that are really worthy are those who are exemplary, in fact phenomenal. So you got to be phenomenal, or basically you're worthless. And I don't agree with that at all. And so as sort of a counterpoint to his wisdom, which I do agree with, but a counterpoint to where he goes with that, is that mediocre people, regular folks, are actually very important, and the world would grind to a halt if it wasn't for them. And also that, they should be appreciated. Like, okay, you go to a restaurant, if you get phenomenal service, then you're going to leave a bigger tip for sure. So there's definitely reward for being phenomenal. But if I get my food, the server is pleasant, everything comes timely, the bill is figured correctly, that's ordinary. I'm going to give that person a good tip, not a great tip, but a good tip. And that's what we generally expect and we generally want out of life, and that's good. When it's phenomenal, that's phenomenal. But if everybody was phenomenal, then that would be average. and if phenomenal was average, then what's phenomenal? We would have no way to really celebrate and be amazed by people who are phenomenal. And that's what it bothered me, that particularly one of the articles that I cite, and which he's quoted in, was about a talk and really kind of a rally he gave at a Michigan high school. And that was the message he was giving to these kids. And I think it's great to encourage kids to want to succeed, but I don't think it's great to tell, especially impressionable kids, by somebody who they look up to and think is a really cool guy, that ordinary people suck. And that's what he was saying. So that's also part of the wisdom that I try to impart in that particular math chapter.
All right, Matt, what do you think of that?
I mean, in Eric's defense, he does, a lot of the talks that he gives are, and if you watch, especially some of his earlier stuff, are with like athletes, and one of his things is like if you think you're good and you're only given 70% or 70% effort, you're not going to make it, and like all these kids go to college or they want to go to the NFL, and he's just telling them that in order to get to the level that you want to be at, you have to step up your game in order to do that, because if you don't, there's somebody else who's going to outwork you or outperform you or whatever. So I think some of what he's talking about is sort of geared towards that. As far as like,
yeah, and I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, and if he had left it at that, if that's what the total focus of his message was, and he gave illustrations, and particularly his own life. I mean, his life is phenomenal.
Yeah.
The guy basically was living on the street for, I think it was 2 years.
Yeah.
And then it was, turned his life around. Okay, but to tell any audience, and I don't care if it's professional athletes or it's high school students, that ordinary average people suck. I think that's it borders on immoral. It borders on cruelty, because they also get that message, and I think it's really great to inspire people to do their best to try to fulfill your potential, to live your life the highest and best way you can, because that's very much an intention of this book. But to say the vast majority of us who are not phenomenal are no good, I do not think that is wise. I think it's cruel.
Yeah, I mean, he does come off that way for sure in some instances. I mean, I've heard different things that he said that I don't necessarily agree with, but a lot of what he says is, sort of spot on. He's just trying to inspire people to be, to be more than they are, or, like to think differently about what they could be in the future, I guess.
Yeah. And interesting, so I bracketed that chapter with chapter 21. The title is Compassion and Happiness, and that's based on a quote from the Dalai Lama.
Mm-hmm.
And his quote is, if you want to be happy, show compassion. If you want to be happy, show compassion. And his, I'm sorry, if you want others to be happy, be compassionate. And I mean, the Dalai Lama's message, in a way, I think, is sort of an opposite corollary to what I think is the bad part of Eric's wisdom. Not to the good part, but what the Dalai Lama is saying is, for us to have a happy world and for us to be personally happy, we need to be compassionate.
Mm-hmm.
And so that goes back to, so how do we respond to ordinary average people, or even below average people? Well, the Dalai Lama would say, be compassionate. But then the chapter that follows, Eric's chapter, is and let me get of course I need my reading glasses because I'm turning into an old fart before your very eyes. I should have pulled the ebook up. I can see it better, and I could enlarge this print, but I have the paperback here. 23 is about success and teamwork. And it's by the quote is from a famous Nepali mountain climber. And of course, now I'm not finding the exact page the quote is on, but essentially, the quote says, "You can do whatever you believe you can do." And so it's kind of like Eric's quote. And what this guy did is he summited all 14 of the 20,000 meter, or the 8,000 meter peaks, which are all 25,000 feet or higher. And in fact, here it is. I finally found it. His name is Nirmal Purja, and he goes by Nims Purja. And so the actual quote is, "You can show the world nothing is impossible." And he uses his own achievement as an example of that. But where I've found, again, his specific wisdom is inspiring. It's the same kind of point Eric was making, is you got to work hard, you got to believe in yourself. All of that is required for you to achieve your highest potential, and to do what you believe you can do. But what he doesn't say is he managed to achieve this amazing feat, and a lot of people in the mountaineering world consider it the greatest mountaineering feat ever, is he had a whole team that was working with him.
Right.
He didn't solo any of these peaks. He climbed them all as a team member. He was the team leader, but he couldn't have done it without his team. And then he's got a film crew filming it. So, he makes this wonderful movie, 14 Peaks, and it's a very cool documentary.
Mm-hmm.
And he has the whole government of Nepal supporting him, and a foundation funding him.
Right.
And permission from the Chinese government was required for him to summit the very last peak, which is Shishapangma, which is on the border of Nepal and Tibet, but the route he wanted to climb was on the Tibetan side.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually been to that mountain. But so, all these other people and organizations were required to assist him in achieving this. And he leaves, and that all comes through in the documentary, and he would certainly agree with that. But the way he presents his wisdom, the essence of the message he's trying to give to the world, is it's all you got to believe, and then you got to work hard, and you got to be determined to do it. And so I would like people to think about, what achievements have you, readers, had that were wonderful, that you did entirely by yourself, that no help from anybody else was involved? And I'll bet you can't think of one.
Right, because really, no man is an island. So
that's a good wisdom. There you go. That's in volume 2.
There you go.
But, like, a lot of people will give effort, lots of effort, and they still don't make it to whatever level of success. I mean, there's more than the effort that goes into. I mean, there's luck, some degree of luck, or other resources that you happen to fall upon, that I think also filter into that. So it isn't always that you're just lazy or not motivated. And then to the compassion one, perhaps it makes a happier world, but I sometimes feel like I'm the compassionate one, and then, like, where's the compassion coming back to me?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it can feel like that as well. So I guess with all wisdoms, there's, like, as I think about them, I'll be like, well, I like this part of it, but this part of it, I can see where maybe that's not exactly.
Right. Nothing is an absolute.
Yeah.
There's another wisdom from Matt.
I know.
Man,
Right?
just spouting them
That's
off.
for the next
Yeah,
book.
I'm just gonna send a recorder over and let. But Kat, you're right. In fact, a number of chapters in the book deal with what is really success and what goes into success. And I look at various formulas for success, and you can define it differently, but in terms of success as achieving a desired goal, it almost always involves all those things that Nims and Eric talk about in that personal, determination, hard work, belief in yourself. But it also almost always involves teamwork, other people, and yes, luck. I mean, if you take Nims's case, bad weather, which he has no control over, is going to prevent him from summiting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he can come back and try again, but, there's so many things that luck is is a crucial factor in, and we have no control over it. And also just sort of infrastructural groundwork. So much of what in the way we live in the modern Western world, we depend on all this infrastructure that's there, the educational system, our utilities and libraries, Google, the internet, and
Right.
all these things. So, so it bothers me when someone claims that success is dependent solely on you, because I think that is a shallow understanding of what success is and how it's achieved.
Interesting. So, what was your favorite wisdom, or if you have one?
Yeah, I don't have a favorite one, but the very last chapter, 72, was kind of the most fun one to write, and it's actually, I think, the longest chapter. And the title of the chapter is "Time's Up," and that was basically because my wife told me time's up. But the quote is "Time flies when you're having fun." Okay, so we've all heard that, and is there really much wisdom in there? Well, what was interesting is there is no original source for that quote. It can't be found who actually originated that, but there's a bunch of people who it's attributed to. And I thought one of the most interesting ones is Einstein. And he actually didn't say that, and of course Matt would understand this, if you understand special relativity, Einstein would actually think just the opposite, because when you're going fast, which is fun, time slows down. So, I think if Einstein was going to have a quote on this, it would have been, time slows down when you're having fun by going fast. But it was fun going through and finding the different people, and Dr. Seuss is actually another one, where this quote has been attributed, and how it actually wasn't said or written by that person, but what was that person trying to say that's kind of in the ballpark of this. And one of the most enjoyable sources that I came across was there's a blogger and podcaster named Gretchen Rubin, who has a little short video about child rearing, and what she says is and I'm probably going to not get this exactly right, but it's the days the days go by slowly, but the years fly by. And that's not exactly how she said. And it's the title of her little video. But what she was talking about is the experience of parenting, and how when you're in it, it just can drag on.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, changing another diaper,
Yeah.
picking up the kids from soccer practice again, yelling at my teenager who's disobedient. But then when your kids are grown, and I've had this very same experience, which is why it really, connected with me, it seemed, wow, that went by so fast.
Yeah.
And so there's this very strange, subjective experience to time. And so I wanted to sort of, dig into that, and how do we live with time, and how is time meaningful to us in terms of living a meaningful life. And so there's the past, which has these wonderful aspects to it, that we have good memories that become kind of like monuments in our mind that we can revisit, and enjoy the rest of our life. And of course there are some we wish we could forget, but there's value in living in the past. But on the other hand, if all you do is live in the past, you're a real drag.
Yeah.
And so another wisdom is live for today, be in the moment, and really just enjoy life right now. And there is wisdom and there is meaning there too. But if you forget the past, you're probably going to screw up in the way you're living today. And there might be a tendency to be a little bit reckless. And so then there's the future, there's planning. And so there's this living in the future in the sense of planning, and to have a good, meaningful life, you need to plan. You've got to, not just financial planning, but have goals in terms of where do I want my life to go? How do I prepare for college? How do I prepare for retirement? So there are these three sort of obvious parts to the time of our lives. And the wisdom I wanted to bring out is that we have to honor and recognize the value of all three of those, but we can't just pick one and stop there.
That's interesting. So my investment in lottery tickets, that will be the future.
Yeah. Can I make a prediction of your future?
I'm gonna win and be happy and live happily ever after.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, Matt.
Well, so just out of curiosity, what's in the future for you? I mean, what do you got going on?
Well, whenever I finish a book, I need a rest period, and so I'm in the rest period, and I'm not trying to write anything new. I actually do have a couple articles that are one's actually been sent off, but for me, writing articles is nothing like writing a book.
Right.
The commitment is so minimal comparatively, but I'm still the president of the Bassa Village Foundation, which I've talked about with you guys before.
Yeah.
And so we're working up to developing an agricultural project for the Bassa area. So that's ongoing, and I'm on a couple other boards, nonprofit boards. One works on STEM education. We fund local STEM programs around central Indiana. Another is the Indianapolis Peace and Justice Center, and we put on programs on all sorts of different issues, but that have some relationship to promoting peace and justice.
All right.
So, and then I'm playing pickleball at least 3 times a week.
Wow, awesome.
So that's my poor, pathetic, ordinary life.
Pickleball. Yeah, we did talk.
And not phenomenal.
Well, I mean, it's phenomenal for you. So.
Well, I'll take it.
All right.
It's the best one I have.
All right, Kat, what else you got?
Well, I just enjoyed hearing the quotes of the different things that they meant to you, and a little bit more about the history behind them, or the lack thereof. Time flies when you're having fun. Like, now everybody's gonna, when they listen to this, they're gonna go like search and try to find like who actually said that or something. But it's always a pleasure to have you as our guest, and I look forward to reading the book. So Matt's gonna have to turn that over.
Yeah, I will definitely do that. I keep telling you to remind me, because I always forget. But it's sitting right here on my desk, and
well, and don't try to find Matt's chapter in the table of contents, or get the latest edition, which actually has chapter 22 in the table of contents.
Oh, that is so funny. I didn't even notice that, and I wouldn't have noticed it until you pointed it out. But because I was reading, just going through the book looking for it when I first got it, and I finally found it and stuff and read through it, and then I was looking at some of the other ones and never really paid attention to the table of contents. So it's pretty cool. I got one that doesn't have it in there, kind of like the odd first edition.
It just shows you, you don't really need the table of contents. If you're driven, you'll find your chapter.
That's right.
Yeah, well, you're supposed to read the whole book, so you start on page 1 and keep going. You don't need to look back.
Well, when I got the email saying that, I got a mention in the book, I was like, oh, I got to see what that's about. So, yeah. Yeah,
well, now you're going to become a world-famous literary character. So
yeah,
watch your social media. They're going to be stampeding after
you. We can only hope. All right, Jeff. Well, thank you for being on. We appreciate it. You can come back and we'll talk about, number 73 through 144, I guess it would be. So.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoy spending time with you guys, and of course I enjoy your Facebook page as well. So, always charming to speak with you.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, this will be some good information for quotes and polls and such groups. So.
Yeah, for sure.
I look forward to promoting it, for sure.
Okay. Well, thanks again for having me, you guys, and we'll be in touch.
All right. Take care.
Happy holidays.
Oh, happy holidays to you, too. Namaste.
As always, if you have any questions, concerns, or comments, you can send those to Kat at iwriteplays@outlook.com, or you can write to me at backstorysessions@gmail.com, or Matt at level11ventures.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.